Well, welcome everybody to our foster care NRM orientation. My name is Marge Trudnowski, and I am the project manager for foster care NRM as part of the DS settlement, and I'm on the workforce development team with the licensing division. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mike Kincaid. I'm also on the workforce development team. I've been with the team for almost 2 years now, and I will be driving the slides for Marge and Felix today. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thanks. Felix?
Good afternoon. My name is Felix Fernandez, and I am a research and data analyst with the NRM unit.
Thank you. So to begin, what we'd like to do is have each of you introduce yourself just quickly and what your role is. Are you a caregiver, a stakeholder, which is an agency that would go and provide support for our caregivers? Or are you part of our DCYF staff? And we also would like for you to put that same information in the chat. What we're doing is we are gathering information, contact information from all participants. So we'll then be organizing you into different groups and communicating with you. So this is the beginning of the process of doing a lot of outreach with our foster care community. So I am going to start with the people I see on my screen first. Gavin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Gavin Tan. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm coming from the Nisqually land today. And I am the Adolescent Transitions Program Manager with DCYF headquarters. And yeah, I just feel thankful to be here to be able to listen and engage and help in any way that I can. Did I hit all the topics? I think I did.
You did. Put
Great.
them in the chat now.
Sounds great.
Melanie, you're next on my screen here.
Hey, I'm Melanie Gibson. I'm the safety monitoring supervisor. So basically the licensing supervisor in Region 3.
Welcome. Lenny?
Hello, my name is Lenny Sutton. I'm a licensed caregiver. Just went through my renewal last year, first renewal, and I currently have a 13-year-old placement.
Welcome. And thank you for being here. Tori?
Hi, I'm Becky Torrey. I'm safety and monitoring out of Linwood.
Oh, welcome. Ooh, let's see. Ethan?
Hi, I'm Ethan Grant. I am a licensed caregiver.
Welcome. Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Levitan. I'm a home study specialist out of Region 5. I'm also a licensed foster parent, also for Region 5. And I'm with Amara CPA. And I think that was it.
No, welcome. How about Joyce?
Hi, I'm Joyce Erickson. I am currently recruitment and retention for community youth services, but I also was a licensed foster parent for 7 years.
Oh, welcome, welcome. And then I have MISIOGA.
That's me, Karen Mashoik.
Karen.
Safety, I'm safety monitoring up here in Bellingham.
Oh, welcome.
I don't know why my screen is open. Hi, here I am.
All right, I see you. Nora.
Hi, I'm Nora Helder. I'm the licensing supervisor at Olive Crest North Sound in Bellevue.
Oh, welcome. Buffy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Buffy Villa, and I am in Region 5, and I am with the court dependency program manager here just today to listen about the project and what's going on.
Oh, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Did I get everybody? If I didn't, just unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Sometimes my screen jumps around. All right, let's get rolling then. Next slide, please. So before we get started talking about what foster care NRM is, the licensing division team and NRM and DCYF overall really want to express how grateful we are for all the hard work and compassion that all of you have for our kids who are in the foster care system, whether you're a stakeholder, a provider, for one of our staff. The level of care and support that you provide for our kids is amazing, and it's hard to put into words. As you are all aware, DCYF is moving towards a kin-first culture, and we know this has been a difficult transition for the foster care community, feeling like, what is your role now, and how has your role changed? Many of you have heard this message before, but it's worth repeating. That, like I said, the role you play as a caregivers and stakeholders in supporting our children and youth in out-of-home care is vital. You are sure that their physical, their emotional well-being are met and have their primary focus when kids come into your care, which lessens their trauma and begins that healing process for them. So for all of your services, we are very eternally grateful for the work that you do. And I really want you to hold that thought as we begin and talk about foster care NRM. Felix, you want to go next?
Yeah, good afternoon. What we're going to be covering in orientation today are the following. We're going to briefly go over the DS settlement and how that led to system improvements. More specifically, how that led to mandated revising of licensing standards. And then we'll talk more specifics about what is negotiated rulemaking and the why behind it. And we'll close out by talking about how you can participate in this process, as well as talk about the phases in the timeline associated with negotiated rulemaking. So let's start off with talking about what is the DS settlement. So just by hands or an emoji or however you want to identify, who's heard of the DS settlement? Great. So we won't go too much into it, but what I want you to take away today is that it was a lawsuit that was filed back in 2021. It had hundreds of kids within this court case. It really highlighted issues and deficiencies within the child welfare system. DS is one of the initials of the youth that came forward to file the complaint. And this lawsuit was settled late 2022, and it led to 8 system improvements, one of them being revising licensing standards. Any questions about the DS settlement so far? All right. And when we talk about revising licensing standards, we're talking about WAC 11110 148, and those are the foster care rules that you have to follow as a foster parent, or the ones that we regulate as DCYF licensors. Once we go through this process of revising our WACs, policy will later change to reflect the WACs that have also been revised.
So now that we talked about why we're here as part of the DS settlement, revising licensing standards, let's talk about what NRM actually is. NRM is designed to be a partnership with our stakeholders, our caregivers, our licensing staff, and our youth and parents with lived experience. Your participation in this process is vital into leading changes that represent all of your voices through the process and looking at reviewing and updating and changing WAC 11110 148. This has been done before by DCYF. It was done with our childcare WACs about 8 years ago. There were 5 stakeholder groups in reviewing and changing those WACs. They were our childcare centers, our family home providers, our early start ECAP providers. We had parents at the table, and we also had licensing staff at the table. So those 5 stakeholder groups came together and negotiated and looked at the WACs and came up with new childcare WACs. It was very, very successful. And that is what guides our childcare facilities now. We're also looking at our group care WACs, which is also part of the DS settlement. They began their process this summer. They're about 6 months ahead of the foster care WAC review. And they are currently in the middle of their negotiations and looking at the group care WAC. And we're here today to start our review or the NRM process for our foster care WACs. We also have hired an impartial facilitator for both the group care and the foster care WACs. What the facilitators will be is getting the groups to work together and to, at the very end of it all, to come to consensus on what the WACs will be and what the changes to the WACs will be. DCYF, we will not be facilitating that. We will be there to support you all and to organize you all, but it's really between you and the facilitator that will come up with what these WACs are. The WACs then will go over to the AG's office for review. We do need to keep in line with our RCW, which are our laws. We have to keep in line with the outline within the DS settlement as well as the federal regulations. So those are the three different programs that will guide us in looking at the WACs. The WACs will also go to our Assistant Secretary of Licensing Division for a final review. But it's really up to all of you on what you want to see and what changes you would like to see. Next slide, please. So now that we talked about a little bit about what NRM is, let's talk about why we are using this process to review our WAC. When we open up to public access to rulemaking, we ensure that no one is left out in the process and that all voices are heard. The ability to sit and listen between licensing staff, providers, parents, and stakeholders will bring an environment and an opportunity to develop a variety of trusting and respectful partnerships in our community. So when this was done with our childcare WACs, throughout the process, multiple perspectives and voices were heard, and they were able to create more culturally and developmentally appropriate rules. And the rules were also data-driven and research-driven with the ultimate goal of keeping in mind having positive child outcomes. There also was more compliance with the rules. Child care providers, they understood the intent, which then led to less infractions coming in with them not being in compliance with the rules. The benefit of having stakeholders at the table is that you are investing your time and expertise in this process, which is invaluable. You are there in our community supporting our caregivers. You're guiding them in the process of caring for kids. And having you at part of the foster care NRM process will help cover all of the WACs and what needs to be changed and what barriers need to be broken down so that we're able to better meet the kids who are in out-of-home care. So as Felix and I have been unrolling our orientations, the question that has been brought up is why should caregivers and stakeholders get involved with this project? In the past, you've all been asked to get involved or voice your thoughts on different projects through surveys, for example, with no results. What is very different about this project is before when WACs were looked at, they were done internally by the department with input from the caregiver community. This time, the roles are reversed. You are the drivers of these changes. And what the department is doing in the licensing division is providing guidance for you and support for you as you review these WACs. We are also being monitored by a plaintiff group associated with the DS settlement to make sure that we are following through with this process. And because it is associated with the DS settlement, we have to do this. This was part of the agreement. There would be no NRM without you. If we cannot get our caregivers and our stakeholders to the table, it will not be successful. You are the ones who are making these changes. You are the experts. You are the ones who are living with these WACs in your homes. You know what the rules and how they impact, and is it in the best interest of the child? NRM also is supporting the overall arching goal of meeting the needs of our children and keeping them safe and healthy in a nurturing, loving environment. Next slide, please. So some of the really positive outcomes of NRM I've already talked about is the overall goal is safety and the well-being of children who are in out-of-home care. It also develops culturally appropriate rules for our caregivers so they're better able to meet the needs of our children. They also remove barriers and burdens for our caregivers so they can meet the needs of our kids. What a rule looks like in writing and what it actually looks like in your home can be very, very different. And only you guys know that. NRM also incorporates the values and the beliefs of DCYF. It is inclusive, respectful, it has integrity, it has compassion, and it has transparency. So as we move through the next couple years and looking at our WACs, we want to keep these outcomes in mind and these values as we begin this process. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the roadmap. Beginning January this year, the foster care NRM team kind of laid out a path to begin reviewing and getting input from our caregivers. The ultimate goal you can see here is by July 1st, 2026, we need to be in full compliance with our new WACs. So during this period between January and October 1st, we are gathering input from each of you on what WACs are working for you as professionals, as caregivers in the home, stakeholders, and what doesn't work for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about what it looks like to review a WAC. And what that is doing is building a process where we will hold our listening and learning sessions this summer, the spring and summer, beginning May through August. And those will be sessions where we review the WAC. And what we're doing is by the time we hit October 1st and we actually start changing the WACs, we have a really good basis on what it is and an idea on what it is that needs to be talked about. So for example, in the group care negotiations, not every WAC gets changed because it may not need to be changed. But by the time you get to negotiations, you really know, okay, these are the WACs that need to be addressed within a 6 months period. So the hybrid negotiations will start October 1st and go through March of 2025. When we're all done looking at the WACs and coming to consensus on what the language will be and what the rules will be, it will then go over to the AG's office for polishing and filing for public comment. After they've been filed, we then, our team, the foster care NRM team with the workforce development team, will then train for a full year. We'll train our licensing staff and our CPA staff, not our staff, our CPA providers on what the new WACs will be. And I think a really exciting part of that is that as we develop the new WACs and we train everybody to what they are, the overall goal for us is hopefully you will see more consistency in how WACs are interpreted and how they're implemented within licensing division. After the training is done, like I said before, July 1st, 2026, we will go live and you will have all new foster care WACs or new WACs that need to be, that you all want to see changed. So I've talked a lot about, what NRM is, why we're using it, and the roadmap that we have here that is really dictated by the DS settlement. Before we get into more details, does anybody have any questions? You can put in the chat or unmute yourself. No? Right, Mike, you want to move on?
All right, so here we are at orientation. Orientation will run through March. So we started in February. We're reaching the end of orientations, but we started with 12 sessions. They were spread out throughout the week. So we had Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and we also tried to incorporate different times of the day. So mornings, lunch, afternoons, and evenings. We've done 2 Saturday sessions, and I think we have 1 more Saturday session left. The whole purpose of orientation is we want you to leave here today knowing what to expect of the process. So if you have questions on what roles and responsibilities of everyone are, please speak up. At the end, we'll have a open time for questions. But more importantly, we also want you to continue recruitment. So we started recruitment by doing a Gov delivery blast. I'm kind of interested to know how foster parents received their invite today. We'll talk about that in a second. We've also been picking up the phones to recruit foster parents throughout the state. But if you don't see people here that you feel like should be involved in the process, or you can think of people that you know that are foster parents, we ask you to share this information with them. In the chat, we'll go ahead and throw the website, which has our schedule of orientations, the listening learning sessions, which we'll talk about here in a second. And we'll also provide the email in the chat as well. Following orientation, what we are going to do is we're going to take the emails that you threw in the chat, and we're going to send you an email. That email will contain a WAC focus spreadsheet, and that is how you can provide feedback to us. We are going to ask you to review WAC 1110, 148, and in that email will also be a link of an electronic WAC book. Review the electronic link, provide feedback through the spreadsheet, and then we ask that you email it back to us at DCYF NRMFC at dcyf.wa.gov. We'll again throw that in the chat. But we ask that you do that by the end of the month. So March 29th, we want that feedback back. We will compile it, and then we will organize you into groups based off that feedback. As you review WAC, we ask you to remove language if you feel like that language is no longer applicable. We ask you to make comments if something is not clear, or if the intent of the WAC isn't clear. Please make those comments. Your comments could be as simple as "this is not clear" to as elaborate as rewriting the WAC. We want as much information as possible. We ask you that you change language, and times change. 20 years ago to 15 years ago to now. Think about children and cell phones. 20 years ago, no one had cell phones. Now 4th graders have cell phones. So add criteria if you feel like times have changed and we need to add criteria. Go ahead and add that. So what to expect? Again, we will email you that WAC spreadsheet. That's how you're going to provide feedback. Then we will organize the data, we will organize the WACs, and we will group you based upon groups. So groups could be foster parents. We'll organize you in as your areas. We may have to combine areas, or maybe we'll have 6 different areas. We'll invite licensors to our sessions. We'll also have stakeholders present as well. And with these groups, you will down the road vote for representatives. So representatives will be the ones that will be at the negotiation table come October 1st. But let's talk about the listening and learning sessions. So we have orientation, we'll ask for your feedback, and then once we have compiled that feedback from the spreadsheets, we are going to hold listening and learning sessions. These will occur May through August, and there'll be 32 sessions, so about 2 per week. However, you're not going to be expected to attend all 32 sessions. Like I said, we're going to be grouping participants based upon who they are. So tribal partners, caregivers, stakeholders, staff, and we'll send out a schedule of which group you belong to. During these listening and learning sessions, we will take that data that we compile from the spreadsheets and we'll start reworking the wax. We'll do live revisions. We'll talk about pieces that need to change, pieces that need to stay, but we'll also listen and learn during these sessions. That's why they're called listening and learning sessions. We want to hear about pain points. We want to hear about burdens. We want your feedback. And each process is just as important as the next. So if we don't get information from orientation from these spreadsheets, that information is going to be used in listening learning sessions. If we don't get a good turnout to listening learning sessions, we're not going to be able to negotiate very well. So each phase is just as important as the next.
So to kind of piggyback on what Felix is talking about, I think what maybe we haven't made clear is who are the groups who will be at the table come October 1st for the actual negotiations. So just to explain it, we'll have caregivers there represented, and we will have our parents and youth with lived experience. We'll have our tribal CPA partners there. And we are combining CPA and our state licensed caregivers. They both are mandated by WAC 1110148. We are not separating you out. We also have our licensing division staff there who license you. So we have 2 from assessment, a home study specialist who do your initial license. We have 2 representatives from safety and monitoring who maintain your license and do your renewals. And then we have 2 from the regional licensing program who work with our child placement agencies. So we have 6 staff who will be at the table with you during the negotiations. The facilitator will be there and very heavily involved in that process beginning October 1st. So I just want to make it clear, it's not LD leadership or DCYF leadership part of that. It is our staff who work with you directly on and with these WACs. Our team will not be negotiating. Our team is there to help facilitate, help coordinate, and help provide technical assistance for all of you. So I just wanted to kind of make it clear on who our stakeholder groups will be for the foster care NRM. We have our website. If you put into your search browser foster care WAC amendments, it will pop right up for you. You can get our everything will go there for updates. So if you need an update, that's where we really highly encourage you to go. You will see all our communications there. You will see our one-pagers. So we have one-pagers that has a general message for what NRM is. We have one for parents or for youth with experience and one for our tribal partners. So like Felix said, it's been a struggle. I'll just be very honest to engage our caregivers, which I can understand. But we're asking that you have taken time to be here, and that if you have community members or other caregivers or other stakeholders that you work with, the one pager that you can get off of our website is very concise and very clear on what NRM is. It is a tool for you that you can use to give and push out to others in your community. We also have our email inbox that we monitor on a daily basis, and that we will get back to you within 48 hours, 48 hours with questions or comments that you have. So those are the resources that we have up and running right now. So before we stop or end, we've talked at you for not a long time, but we've talked at you this afternoon. Does anybody have any questions about the process and the different steps and phases of what we're doing? Or any comments? We are very open to hear comments on how to make this process better, how to reach more caregivers. We've gotten some really good feedback from other caregivers on how to reach out to them. So if you have any thoughts about it, please let us know.
Hi, this is Ethan. I have a comment to add. I guess the orientation sessions have been going on for quite a few days now,
Uh-huh.
reaching back into February. Just a note, I received an email yesterday evening or yesterday afternoon letting me know that this was happening. So at that point, I looked at the website and I saw, oh, well, I've missed a lot of opportunities to join and have my voice heard. So I'm glad that I received the email when I did at least, but I imagine that there are other caregivers who potentially received an email that late and didn't have time to join today or won't have time to join tomorrow either.
Yeah. Can I ask, who did you get the email from, Ethan?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go log into
Okay.
my email. I can do that in a minute.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it has been a little bit of a struggle. As you know, the Gov delivery sometimes gets put into your spam or people don't check their email. And for that reason, we've been picking up the phone and calling people. And if we didn't get anyone on the phone, we shot them out an email. So maybe that's one of the emails that you've gotten. We've been doing it here and there throughout the weeks. But that's why word of mouth is so important. If you know someone who also should be here at the orientation, there's a couple left, but however, we are recording this session and we have recorded other sessions. We are going to post that onto the website. And like I said, recruitment doesn't end here at orientation. It kind of starts here. We have a lot of time before the listening and learning sessions. If they miss that window of providing feedback, we can still take feedback at the listening and learning sessions as well.
So to
I
also,
appreciate that. And
go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say that I got this from Alliance Cares.
Oh, okay.
It did not go to my spam or anything like that. I just wanted to clarify. It did come directly to my inbox. I didn't miss it.
Okay.
I'm like Ethan as well. I just got it yesterday morning and then I went and saw the website. There were two more opportunities. So I'm in this first one.
It looks like Buffy, you got yours from CARES as well. So what we've been doing is, as a state agency, when we communicate with our community partners, we go through we have to go through communications. So when Felix and I and our team communicate out about what's happening, it goes through Gov delivery. So it's important that when if you want to keep updated, is to watch for your Gov delivery if you're signed up for it. If you're not signed up for it, email us at our inbox and we can give you a link to get signed up for the Gov delivery, and also for the Caregiver Connection newsletter. We've been doing a lot of updates there as well. But I've also been working with our partners at the CARES program to also push out from their end. What also has been happening is we posted on our DCYF Facebook, and other caregivers have put it on other Facebook sites that we don't have access to. So that is another way that people have been getting the information about these about orientation sessions. I'm sorry that you've gotten it so late. I'm glad you're here and I appreciate CARES pushing that out. But just to let everybody know, you don't have to attend orientation to be part of this process. It just explains it. You can do that on your own. They can also listen to orientation once we get it up on the website, probably next week. The biggest thing what we need is input on the WAC. And there's the spreadsheet there's on our website, and we will email that out to you as well. We are also putting together a survey. Now that survey will go out Gov delivery. I will give it to CARES as well. We're also engaging our safety and monitoring program and team to help push it out. But there will be a survey as well on giving input on our WAC.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
In the section where it talks about, or the slide where it talks about what the different phases are, and Felix, I believe that you shared that folks will be broken up into groups, and those groups would have opportunities to be able to share their thoughts and do brainstorming and things like that. And then I think if I understood it well, and that's my question, did I understand this correctly? That then at some point, all the groups will come back together and what each group kind of was working on will be reported back out, or will it go through, will it go through and get weeded through and kind of finalized and then come back? I'm just curious if there will be transparency of like the meat of what each group came up with, if the other groups will have a chance to be able to see that in its raw form before it gets refined.
Yes,
Yes.
during the listening and learning sessions, there might be a follow-up. Maybe we don't cover all the information. But during that process, you will choose based upon your groups, 2 reps. Now, those groups are then expected to meet on their own time. The reps are to represent the voice of the group and not their own opinions. So those 2 reps will expect to be that person who relays the information from the hard negotiation table to their group.
Good question, Gavin.
Thank you.
And what we've seen on the group care side of things is we've come to consensus during these listening and learning sessions. So the first listening and learning session, we might take a whack and another group might add to it. And by the end of those listening and learning sessions, some have come to consensus and those won't have to be negotiated come October.
All our listening learning will be done virtually. And what we've learned with group care, our negotiations will be done virtually and hybrid. So removing that barrier of having to travel in a hotel and our caregivers finding, childcare. So the bulk of them will be done virtually. Any other questions?
I have a question about the application of the wax at the end of this. I'm not sure if it applies to this process, but one of the questions that I have in general is going through the process of being licensed, moving, and then having to be licensed immediately after again, or have a home study done immediately after. Is I learned that there's a disconnect between the initial licensing process and standards versus the ongoing licensing and standards. Apparently those are 2 different departments and adhere to 2 different sets of standards. And I see Melanie shaking her head on the screen because we had this conversation. There was some confusion there. So I guess I'm just trying to find out more about that, figure out if that's part of this process or if that's something that needs to be addressed elsewhere.
Melanie, with your head, can you?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's a good question, Ethan. I can understand how there's some confusion. And I think this was specifically about the fire ladder. I think what happened was it was a practice question. It was a whack. And assessment required something. And then when we went and did the move, we didn't think it was required. So I think I was explaining that I think sometimes there's also some practice that's maybe not actually a whack, because if a whack's very broad, it doesn't, sometimes the whacks aren't so specific. And so like assessment used a different judgment than Sam used. We had different assessments when we went in. And so there was some confusion. There was some confusion in that situation with Ethan. I can understand how he was also a little frustrated by it.
So I think with the fire ladder, I mean, that's a perfect example of a whack that we can adjust, but that right now how it's written is assessment. Their interpretation of it was one way, whereas when you come to a move, then your interpretation of it, or the worker's interpretation of it, was different. So by addressing the whacks and making them clear, then hopefully we don't get that inconsistencies from worker to worker, program to program. Now, they're always going to be there. I mean, I have a lot of people who touch one license and who help maintain that license. But I think by reviewing them and making them clear will help our staff then be more consistent with them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other comments?
I want to echo what's been shared. I'm really excited about the prospect of getting to clarify a lot of the WACs because I've been licensed both through the state, I'm sure there are other people, and through a CPA. When I got hired by DCYF, I of course had to let go of my state license and shift over. And I was pretty shocked to both be in a role as a home study specialist and be going through the home study process through a CPA, and the differences in how certain WACs were interpreted was pretty surprising. And I would force the CPA to kick it up to regional licensing. And it was interesting to see how they had differences between how they interpreted it and how my unit within DCYF interpreted things. So that'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. I mean, I think it's hard for our providers or CPAs, and I think it's really hard for our staff. Some of them are very, very vague. So I'm pretty excited.
I mean, to interrupt you, Marge, I think that it's really is like that balance of how detailed to make it.
Yeah.
You don't want to make it so detailed where people are so stuck in having to do something that doesn't make sense for their situation. But you also want to, but then you don't want it so vague that it opens up for what happened in the situation with Ethan. So there really is that balance that you're going to have to find in these WACs.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree, but I think a lot of it is just being clearer rather than being more specific. So, like I had to buy another fire ladder because I was keeping it in the hall closet between 2 bedrooms, and I needed to buy another one to make sure that both bedrooms had one. Whereas my unit would never force that. There's like things like that where there's nothing in the WAC that says that's necessary, and yet that's how it's being interpreted. So I would appreciate more clarity that's my foster parent hat on anyway.
Well, and Megan, you have another layer there because you have a CPA. Whereas if you're getting licensed by the state, you don't have that layer of child placing agencies who are also, in the middle of trying to, issue a license. I'm excited to have you both on board. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, suggestions, input? We appreciate you all being here. Make sure you get your name. If you don't know the region that you're licensed, with, put your county, because then we can track what region you live in. What we're trying to do is break you all down by regions. There's over 3,000 caregivers that we're trying to tap into, which is a lot of people. And like Felix said, if we don't get enough from one region, we may combine them, but that's where we're going to start, is by regions and looking at grouping you there in that way. So we'd like to thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. I put our website, our email address. I also put the DS settlement in the chat. If anybody's interested, you could take that link and open it up, and you can read about the DS settlement, or you actually can scroll down or find the revising licensing standards, and that is where this project falls within the DS report.